Start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval agenda.
Mr. President, I move the board approve the July 11, 2022 agenda.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All right. All right, we'll have a report of board members. Next item. A report of the superintendent.
Good evening, members of the Raytown School District Board. At this time, we will have information that is presented to you and uploaded for information. 8.1, the monthly data review. 8.2, summer school update. 8.3, the bond update, and 8.4, the summer 2022 professional learning catalog. So if we could present that information in that order, that would be greatly appreciated. So those items are in your packet for your review for information.
All right.
I do have a question though, just concerning the summer school enrollment. That we know offhand, just how does that enrollment compare to, I guess, pre-COVID years? I was just curious, just with the success and all, with our enrollment.
Yeah, that's a great question, Natalie. So, good evening, board. So some of the preliminary conversations that I've had with Dr. Tarvin about our summer programs is not only enrollment initially, but also that our students are persisting to complete the summer school programs. Some of the data that I've taken an initial look at is seeing a lower than normal percentage of students that are participating fully in the program. So we really want to see that percentage of attendance in summer school at 90% or better. We know that families have other obligations, they have vacations, they have camps, they have just things that come up. So that will be something that we're going to dig into and certainly can bring back more information to the board. But one of the things that we want to target is not only increasing enrollment in programs, but also seeing our students persist to complete those programs. And so that will be some information we want to bring to the board later in the fall to talk about what we might want to consider for the 2023 summer school that will really, capture the interest of our community to look at how we can not only grow participation, but also those students persisting to complete the program.
Thank you so much.
Any more questions on that? Did you know? Good evening.
Or did you know I would like to introduce you to our newest administrators and This point, they will be familiar faces to you all, but we say official introduction. So when I call my name, you can wave or stand up. First is Tony Davis. You already know. She is moving from principal at Greytown Central Middle to the same position at Greytown South Middle, also previously a teacher here in Greytown. Terry Gibson is our Chief Executive Finance and Operations Officer. He comes to RQS from Jackson R2 School District in Jackson, Missouri, where he served as CFO. Before working in school finance, he worked for over 15 years in accounting and positions of various private enterprise and nonprofit organizations. You can hear me now. Hi. Tony Davis, did you all hear me introduce her? Okay, got it. Terry Gibson, our new Chief Executive Finance and Operations Officer. Melissa Glasgow, she is the new principal at Fleet Ridge Elementary, where she previously served as the admin intern. Before that, she served as the administrative intern at Southwood. Dr. Chris Greiner is our Chief Executive Academic Officer. He comes to us from the Lincoln County R3 School District, where he was the Assistant Superintendent of Academics. Dr. Greiner has been in education for nearly 25 years. And Claire Quinn is the new principal at Southwood Elementary. She was previously the administrator intern at Southwood. Prior to that, she was a teacher here in RQS. Welcome to everyone. And for our recognition this evening, we want to recognize Jennifer Willis. The Missouri Association of School Business Officials, or MOASBO, announced Jennifer Willis as one of its graduates of School Business Specialist Certification Program. The program is a 2-year intensive course designed to prepare and grow current school district employees for the business office. During this program, she participated in training specific to Missouri in the areas of law and regulations, school finance and operations, best practices, ethics, and advancement of professionalism. Congratulations to Ms. Willis. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Next, we'll have our public comment period. We have one person signed up. We'll be giving the 3 minutes, 5 minutes will be allotted to talk. We have Janelle House.
Now it's on. Okay. Hello, school board members and our new superintendent. Thank you for allowing me the chance to speak tonight. I'm concerned about the curriculum and instruction goals for next year. I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but according to moschoolrankings.org, Greytown ranks in the bottom 20 in the state for GPA. And our GPA is 0.70. We're ranked number 499 out of 516 schools. I was shocked when I saw this, and I was actually really sad. As I understand it, we have lost over 1,000 students in the past decade. Soon we will be forced to close many of our buildings due to declining enrollment. Also, if I'm not mistaken, in our recent surveys, parents ranked the quality of the school as one of the top, if not number one, to live in a certain area. So if our numbers are this bad, if we're ranked in the bottom 20 in the state, why would families choose to live here? And why would they send their kids to our school? I would like to suggest that Greytown schools focus more on teaching students reading, writing, math, science, and history, less on cultural competency, diversity, equity, inclusion, and social emotional learning. We cannot afford to get distracted by political things like these things. We need to get our GPA up in this district so families will want to live here and send their kids here to this school. I will email each board member and Dr. Martin Knox the website that I'm referring to so you can see for yourselves what I saw. And I'd like to encourage the entire school board, but especially the curriculum committee, to make a plan and put it into action to help raise the GPA of our students so we are not at the bottom of the barrel in Missouri. As a former teacher and a parent of students here in this school, if there's anything I can do to help, I would be happy to. If you'll just let me know. Thank you.
Discussion of our board goals. I did receive some comments from the board members. And instead of me just saying that, maybe each board member that has questions or want to start the discussion now, if you choose. It is. Anyone? Natalie?
I will say, thank you for making the project of working on our board goals inclusive. Thank you for including and considering our ideas and thoughts and making this a collaborative effort.
Okay. One of the things that was discussed was in our vision, it says our aim is to engage and empower our entire community to become lifelong learners by providing courteous and welcoming culture for all that will lead individuals to achieve the exceptional. Two of the words we're looking to change in that from courteous and welcoming culture would be inclusive and equitable. And those things are, and the reason for that is we've had a lot of public comments in regards to our special education, in regards to just our LGBTQ community, in regards to just issues of just being everybody feeling a part of our community. And so while those words, courteous and welcoming is what we want to be sure to make sure that we include everybody in that. And equitable meaning, equitable doesn't necessarily mean fair as some people would define. However, it does mean that we all have access, and we do want to ensure the success of our students, even our community. The vision is more about our community as a whole. And then when our mission, I don't think anybody suggested any changes there, but I'll just read it. Our mission is to equip each student with knowledge, understanding, and skills to reach their full potential and realize meaningful and successful lives. I'm one board member. We work on consensus, so I don't want to speak out of turn. So I'm trying to speak in general, but we want to make sure that everybody here is able, all of our students and our families work to be able to achieve their full potential. And so these goals are the best way that we can set our aim. And so with that being said, I think if the board is okay with those changes, or if we needed to make that decision, that's what's being proposed. I'm okay with it. If anybody wants to speak to that or something different from that, please do so.
I wanted to ask, what was the issue with welcoming and courtesy? What did you say? Because if all people, when you use the word welcome, that means everyone that enters the door, doesn't it?
It does.
And courteous means that you treat everyone with courtesy.
It does.
So then why do we need to change?
I think with introducing the word being more equitable, that every student gets what they need. And I know there have been concerns about like curriculum. There have also been concerns just about climate. And so I think equitable is a more specific word because that looks at all of our policy, all of the things that we've been working on as an umbrella. And I know for some people, that word might, it might be confused for a lot of other things that we hear. And I think in this sense for our school district, we're looking at all of our learners and we want every single one of them to have exactly what they need. And as we've been hearing concerns, we look at our climate survey, all of those things. That would be the difference. I think that's a more specific word that speaks to the learners getting everything that they need.
Isn't that already said in the mission statement?
It's said in two of the different goals, actually, when you look at attract, retain the quality staff. I think looking at it as an umbrella for some may it kind of is part of our purpose and our mission instead of in like two of the goals. So let's see. And this is just open for anybody else's feedback. It's just an idea.
I mean, you kind of mentioned it yourself. I kind of, with Father courtesy and welcoming, cover it, and to add words that might be buzzwords for some doesn't seem like it's necessary right there in the vision statement.
Does anybody else have any feedback?
Well, also your mission, the mission clearly includes, even with regards to our policies and all of that, it's all in there, in my opinion. I think the challenge for me is that we took something simple and now we've added a little complex to it. And to me, I think you're taking away, in other words, I've got to give thought to what you're saying. I don't have to give thought to say welcome or Curtis. I don't have to consider, oh, what does that mean? How are they using that word? But welcome is very simple. It's clearly in trouble.
Yeah, I will say, I like what you both brought up.
Yeah.
And when I remember writing the courteous and welcoming, I think I did it for those reasons. And so, but just, I think also I understood some of the comments I received. I understood it because of just the year that we've been through and what we've had to consider and the people that have come forward and spoken to us. I think it's more paying attention to the concerns, even the surveys that we receive from staff and students. I think it addresses their concerns on a level, and putting it and making it in the vision might show that we hear what's being said. I'm not opposed to leaving it the same, me myself, but I mean, it's words. So it's like,
And
we need to be intentional about these things, not some vague thing like, and then maybe those words will cause us to have those discussions and to address some of the issues that we need to address.
And Mr. President, I would say I like the replacement words because what we say here in our mission and our vision is our DNA, becomes our DNA as a board. And if that is who we are, it should be seen in more than one place. And if that is who we are, we should say it. And if we don't replace it, I would definitely want to replace courteous because I think that it leaves itself to too many definitions. And if we do not agree on the change, I would suggest using the word respect somehow or some form of the word respect. And otherwise, I like the replacement words because it identifies our DNA and who we are. And this is, those words as mentioned in some of the goals is who we are and where we're trying to go. That is our goal.
I also would say that it's about, I think sometimes whatever words that we might use, there's always going to be maybe a different viewpoint in terms of the words, but I think it's also about education so that people aren't fearful of certain words, because things can easily be out of context, but just about educating so that people understand that this is what we stand for and it's not taken out of context to mean other things. So no matter what we use, I just think it's about educating what that means and just very clearly how that's going to align to be best for all of our students. Because that's what we're about. We're about the students first. And so we want like all of our parents to feel like their students matter. And so just getting that education.
I have a possible suggestion. I didn't submit anything because I think the goals are fine right now, the way they are. Keep working toward these. But I would suggest if we're going to change our mission and vision statements, we need to have a separate work session on that and include the input from our new superintendent. I don't see us changing vision and mission statements without her input on that.
I thought I did get her input, but that's fine.
We didn't hear any.
Mr. President,
I mean, well, what's been presented is result of input.
I'm missing something here.
I guess what I'm saying is we all had input.
Yeah.
We
Had
all had
opportunity
input,
to, yeah.
including our new superintendent.
Oh, I didn't know we were talking about changing the mission and vision statement.
Well, that's part of the goal. I mean, it was sent out.
Well, I haven't heard Dr. Martin Knox's input on changing the vision and mission.
Well, nobody's probably heard anybody's outside of me because this is the time we're having a discussion, but I'm saying we have all made that. But I don't know if you want to hear anything about.
I'm not saying she needs to tonight. I'm suggesting we have a work session on it.
Well,
Mr. President, I'd like to comment just a minute.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
When this was finalized and sent back to us to read and to give then our, does this sound good or what we think about it? When I read this, I thought, you know, this is probably the simplest way in quite a while that we have set our mission, our vision statement, and then our goals. And then we had these bullet points underneath each goal. And I thought, you know, that's just pretty simple. And it pretty well says what we, or what I felt like we as a board should be saying. So I was really pleased with the way it came out. I don't know that I couldn't go along with the changing of the words, but again, when you start changing mission and vision, that's probably maybe a little more discussion than what we want to spend right here. But I thought we come up with a pretty good idea, and I would be willing, if it came to the point of making that motion, I would do it to keep it as it is, because I thought it was about as simple a way to put our goals up on the board and what we've had in a long time.
Just so I'm okay either way. So, and I guess what I'm trying to say, I agree with what you said, and I agree with what you said. Rick, what I'm saying is, it wasn't that, I mean, each person had comments, and I tried to, there was really no other thing. The comments that I'm bringing up tonight were comments that were brought to me today. Okay, so nobody really suggested anything before now, as far as, but there has been discussions with us. So that's what and the only reason I'm hesitant to say the work session is because we have to like publish this and have it ready for school to start. And that's the reason. And maybe we just keep it the same and wait and work on this for
There's
some
a
other
motion
time.
to approve and change the words. I'll vote yes on it, so we can approve this. But the mission and vision are more than the goals. And I think we need to have a discussion amongst ourselves more than just right now, and with input from the superintendent on changing the mission and vision statement.
Well, the mission and vision statements were statements that were changed last year, and they were part of the goals. And that's what so it's this whole document about the goals. And the goals are based in, it doesn't necessarily change the mission or the vision. It just changes the words to something more specific. But like I said, anybody want to make a motion or however want to do it?
A motion for a work session?
Or motion, whatever motion, if you want to approve what it is, how it is, if you want to change the words, however, wherever it goes.
Mr. President, I move the board approve the 22-23 board goals as presented.
Second.
All right, motion made in second. I got one other thing, sorry. I want to bring back up in our first goal, the technology plan, improving virtual technology and social networking. Not that we don't need to do that, but I always wondered why we put that in there. And even last year, I put project-based learning and STEAM. Those are specific things I don't know that we need to drill down that far. Because, I mean, each department has a plan. And I don't know, why are we singling out those two things? Other than that, y'all might want to consider not having those as part of our goals or doing something else with those bullet points.
So are you saying that these two are just very, very specific, right? In
right.
terms of being more broad?
Like, why wouldn't we have a curriculum plan? You know, why wouldn't we have for every plan that we do, why is this one? I'm not saying it shouldn't be, just asking a question. Or project-based learning, I don't know that we've done anything with that in a year. Or that should be there.
That's part of our goals, but we're not telling them how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
We're just saying that one of our goals is project-based learning STEM and technology plan, improving virtual school technology and social networking. We're not telling them how to do that, but these are some things that we need to improve on as a goal. And when you start listing bullet points, they're generalizations. It's not specific, all right, we're going to do this and this is how you're going to do it, but this is what we would like to see you do. So I think based on that, there's nothing wrong with it being there.
Mm-hmm.
And because in the past, I've argued bullet points, when we get down to when we start telling them how to do it, then we're overstepping our boundary, because that's not the function of the board. It's policy making, not how to do it. It's just, this is what we're going to do. And I don't think this does tell them how to do it. I think it's there, and it doesn't hurt to be there.
I guess what I'm saying is, why wouldn't capital improvements plan be on part a bullet point?
Probably there's 100 things we could have added on here.
Right.
That, and maybe in the future we will.
I'm just asking,
Yeah.
why is that?
Why is
the
this
one?
and not that? I guess because at the point when this was being discussed, that didn't come up. This did. And that's a bad answer, but yeah, we could continue to add
I'm not,
things to these.
I'm actually saying maybe we should drop it.
So
I know what you're saying.
I just want to just add on to what Terry's mentioned, just looking at the climate survey. I know one of the things that came up was, I guess, a disconnect between maybe students. Do I have this? Oh, I thought I was loud enough. Okay, I guess one of the things that came up was students feeling, seeing the relevancy in some of their learning of real world applications. So I can see why this might be like an intentional pivotal focus under the curriculum, since, as Terry was mentioning at the time, this seemed like something of concern, and I think it continues to be one. And just looking at those results, that was one of the things I kind of hallmarked that came up. And so I would be comfortable with the project-based learning and STEAM, all of that is like real world remaining there as a intentional focus. Everybody could hear me, right?
All right, well, we have a second. Any more discussion?
I was just gonna say, even though I'm gonna vote in favor of the motion, I still think a work session to discuss our mission and vision wouldn't be a bad idea.
Okay. All right.
Because I'm open, if the new superintendent wants to make some changes or has some ideas in that, I'm open to changing those. A lot of times new CEOs want to change mission and vision statements. So if we need a work session, I think we should do that. So we can all have input and discussion.
So, Mr. Chair, may I? So first of all, let me just compliment you all on the discourse that's taking place, because this is all about our children. And so the fact that we have goals that we can focus in on, because this is our foundation. And moving into this school year, our plan is to begin to work on our strategic plan. And this will set the pace for us moving forward. While I looked at the language of courteous and welcoming, I do agree. The language is clear and cut and dry, but we're courteous and welcoming to whom? And so when we look at the work, I even came up with another option to say that we're welcoming and inclusive, because we can welcome people into our building, but unless there's a sense of inclusivity for those who are coming into the building, that means hearing the voice of those who are a part of the work. Just like the young lady spoke earlier today about the GPA. We need to hear the voice of our community, of our constituency, of our staff, of our children. So we're welcoming individuals, but if their voice isn't being heard, are we really being inclusive? So I like all of the terminology that's being utilized, but we will continue to work on this because this is a working document. This is a work in progress. And when we talk about school improvement planning, which is something we discussed today as a team, it's going to adjust along the way. You're going to evaluate where you are, evaluate where you intend to go, and make those adjustments along the way. So while we have this language, it is not etched in stone. We can always engage in those conversations moving forward, and we will. Because again, like I said, we will be engaging in discourse very soon, actually next week, talking about our strategic plan, which is the way in which we will go for our school district. So I again applaud you for having meaningful discourse around our goals. It gives me great joy, again, just to be here among you, because the focus is still on children in our district, and that's key. We can't lose sight of that. And so I commend you for that. I just threw another wrench in there just to say welcoming and inclusive. But again, we can keep it as is. And as we're looking at our strategic plan, come back to you as a board to say, this is the language that we see reoccurring while we're planning and putting our plan into action as well, so that we can engage in this conversation. I see nothing wrong with having a continued discussion around the board goals.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Based on that input from our superintendent, I would move to amend the main motion to amend the vision to say by providing a courteous, welcoming, and inclusive culture for all that will lead, et cetera, et cetera.
I would second that. I like that.
And then I was supposed to do something, but I don't know what.
No.
I made the
He
motion.
made the motion.
Yeah, so
I
I'm
made a
supposed,
motion to amend.
Okay.
He seconded that. So now we would vote on that
Okay.
motion to have discussion or vote on.
Any discussion on that? All right, let's vote.
This is a vote on the motion to amend.
The motion to amend.
Just one moment, I need to roll call.
I'll roll call. Mr.
Yes.
Landers,
yes.
Ms. Salisbury,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Moore,
Yes.
Ms. Payton,
Yes.
Ms. Johnson-Berry,
Yes.
and myself, yes.
Thank you, Dr. Penelope.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
I wish you would have said that a long time ago.
So I don't have to withdraw
No.
I don't have to withdraw my motion? Okay, quit it.
We
All right.
still need to vote on it. We need to vote on the main
Yeah.
motion.
Mr. Landers, on your motion.
Oh, I get to vote on it too?
Yeah.
Yes. Or no?
No, not yet.
I'm
No.
invited to, am I voting to withdraw it?
No, we're
No.
voting on your motion.
Vote on your motion. We voted on the amended, now vote on your
Yeah,
motion.
Okay.
So
Yes.
it's yes.
So it's up there to vote.
It's now.
It's up there to vote.
Could you explain the vote
Yeah.
again, please?
Well, you've already voted yes on the other one. But he wanted to keep the language the same,
And then
And we
we
did
had
not.
and we did not.
To amend the vision statement. Everything else is the same.
Oh,
I see.
that's
I
what we did.
Thank you.
That's okay. Okay.
Don't make fun of us.
Please.
All right, motion passed. All right, new business, renewal of our Tyler technology systems. Melissa. Oh, okay. Need a motion.
Mr. President, I move the board approve the Tyler Technologies renewal in the amount of $141,195.30.
Second.
Motion made and second. By Ms. Biden. All right, our regional COVID response and recovery grant.
I move that the Board of Education accept the grant from the Kansas City Regional COVID-19 Response and Recovery Fund in the amount of $30,000.
Second.
Motion made and seconded.
Is there a specific area? There's a specific area for this 30,000?
Yes, ma'am. So this grant and the grant following both will go to help support Trauma Smart training for our staff during the 22-23 school year. So these resources will help pay for trainers as well as provide professional development for our staff outside the contracted day. The idea here is that we want to be responsive to the needs of our students. And we know that COVID has accelerated lots of adverse childhood experiences that our community, that our students have experienced. And so Trauma Smart is a program by which we will inform our staff and empower our students to be more responsive when those students are in trauma. How will we respond as a school district to meet those needs and engage with our mental health community as well. So lots of supports we currently utilize to help provide additional time and support for our students, but this is specifically around the Trauma Smart training for our staff.
Thank you.
All right. Health Fort Foundation grant. Motion.
The Board of Education accept the grant from Health Board Foundation.
Motion made and seconded. Curriculum and instruction goals.
Good evening, board. Pleased to share with the board tonight the 5 curriculum and instruction goals for the 22-23 school year. These goals are a carryover from previous years. So obviously our department is very focused on the math achievement of students. We're highly focused on the ability of our students to read nonfiction and write argumentative, persuasive pieces to support their content. We're very concerned about cultural competency. We want to continue that good work that's happening around cultural competency. We also know that engaging and high quality depth of knowledge questions that our staff uses with our students to engage and get them to, this is important. We know that all of that, though, operates within a collaborative culture. So the data review teams that'll be working this year will be incorporating those specific instructional strategies around math achievement, around nonfiction reading and argumentative writing, around the implementation of cultural competency skills, around engaging questioning strategies for our students within the context of a collaborative culture. So I'm very excited to work with my department to honor that good work that they've been a part of for the last several years. We also want to be supportive of our buildings as they utilize collaborative teams to really implement this work at a high level. As Dr. Martin Knox mentioned, we're also looking ahead to the future, to our next strategic plan. How can we incorporate these strategies into that plan and ensure that we are executing these at a high level? So a lot of the work that'll happen this year with my team will be taking the work that they have started and really look to execute these goals at a high level. So I look forward to bringing back to the board later this year evidence of how we're progressing with those goals. But again, we certainly want to entertain any questions or comments the board has about the priorities of the preparing instruction.
So I do have a. You want to go? There we go.
Might be a minute.
Okay.
Cultural competency, we're going to understand student differences, cultural competency. How will our staff be trained? Will it be mandatory training? Will it be optional training? Will they be trained prior to the school year in cultural competency and ongoing? Right now, I don't know how, if our entire staff is not trained on cultural competency, that this could be an effective benchmark.
So for the last few, prior to COVID, there was a district committee that launched by Dr. Moore. And there were building committees that were established to begin learning about cultural competency and how that would actually play out in our schools. I think certainly the pandemic paused some of that work. I know that we are excited this year about resuming and continuing the work that's going to happen that's led by our building committees that have been trained in cultural competency, and we'll be working with the rest of our staff at each of our schools to fully train our staff around the components of cultural competence.
So our entire staff will receive cultural competency training. And it'll be the trainer type of educational process.
Yes, ma'am.
And how often will we review that training?
So I think as a team, we'll be reviewing that information and progress weekly. One of the things that we'll be talking about as a team, in fact, we have our first kickoff team meeting tomorrow, is really understanding how will we execute the goal of cultural competency here in Raytown during the 22-23 school year, now that we have moved back into sort of that post-pandemic, where we're able to be face-to-face, have meetings, have conversations, engage our students and our staff in the ways that we had hoped to do a few years ago. I think that evaluation process, as part of the goal, our action steps are to evaluate the progress we are making. And I think that that's something that we'll be doing on a weekly basis with our team, but certainly can bring back to the board the information that we are gathering from our district committee, as well as those building committees, with the progress that they're making at each site.
And the build.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Dr. Moore.
The committee has been discussing the needs, assessing all the buildings. He said the buildings do have plans. Also, the superintendent and I have met with several companies, exploring, looking at different companies to come in and do what we call trainer. We're also participating, we received a grant through the Coffin Foundation. We'll be participating in the schools cohort. We actually was accepted last year. We didn't start it last year due to COVID and logistics. That will start with cabinet members from the superintendent's leadership team who participate in what we call a deep dive every month. These 8-hour training, as well as us talking to different companies to look at the possibility of doing it at every building. However, it's important before we just do any type of training, although principals are expected as it's built into their professional learning plan, it isn't expected they do train, and we do monitor that, and I keep a sheet of that, and I be more than happy every month to bring updates to the board to say this is where we are by building. However, the equity in schools cohort will include members from the superintendent's leadership team You can provide progress on that training as well. Then as we go forward and we find a company, as you decide a little later on to do district-wide. This year, we felt it most important to start with the superintendent's leadership team and participation in an equity plan, because in the equity in schools cohort, part of that process is we do what's called a district-wide equity audit through a company called Beloved Community out of St. Louis, but Kaufman pays for it. They're also giving us $25,000 this year. And then next year, give us $300,000, 200 years. Over 2 years, I'm sorry. $300,000 over 2 years to implement more of the deep dive training, as well as look at some other types of supports as a district you might want to look at to implement it. Because we have to have a strong foundation. First of all, this year it's important that everybody speaks the same language, common language, as someone said earlier. When we say equity, when we say inclusive, this is what we mean. Also, it's important that we focus about kids. This really is about doing what's best for students and how does this tie into improving student achievement and student outcome. And so that'll be the goal, but I'm more than happy to bring back the committee meets monthly. I'm more than happy to bring back a report to you specifically. I do have a spreadsheet that every school could tell you what specific trainings each school will be doing this school year, and that will be mandatory.
That's very nice. And I don't know, I'm just one person on the board. I think that would be very nice because previously, I don't know that we completely understood everything that the Cultural Competency Committee was doing. And those committees in our buildings include certified and classified staff.
That is correct. And I met with every principal at the end of last year. Dr. Mixon was with me. He and her both went with secondary principals. And we made it very, very clear in terms of this is mandatory required. Well, as every school has to have a committee. Also, every school has a representative, which is the contact person for that school. And there's at least one person on the Cultural Competency Committee from representation from every school, including Herndon, or say all of our schools. And some of the departments, like transportation. But it is important to us that we're speaking the same language. When I do that, we got to get it out to everybody. And it's got to be clear. This is the direction. Everyone means everyone. So people really don't have a choice and we're not going to do this, but we also want to make sure it's back what's best for students.
So this is going to be my last question. We have this plan that we have now, and we are working with Kaufman, and you and I have had an opportunity to talk about some of the initiatives in regards to equity and defining equity. But it sounds like perhaps we will have two parallel systems running. At some point, will they be married, or am I just missing it and there's no divide?
Well, to be honest with you, I see what we're doing with equity in the schools cohort is a process to get us down the road to what we do training specifically in terms of trainer model with all schools and departments, classified and certified staff, ensuring that bus drivers, secretaries, everyone has this type of training. But I think it's important that we have a solid foundation, and the equity audit will give us specific data that looks at different departments, not just curriculum instruction. We'll look at transportation, we'll look at HR, we'll look at business and finance, to give us the type of data that we need to make sure that we're clear and moving in the direction to move in terms of the type of training we need. And again, we're talking to companies. Wait, so that once we decide on which company will provide that training, it'll be very, very intentional, and it'll be tied directly, simultaneously to what the strategic plan decided where we need to go as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great question.
I had a, just something to throw out and looking at these goals. And, we have as one of our goals that our students will be able to ask these high-level questions. And because we know that one of our concerns is just in the relevancy of what students are learning, I'm just thinking about diversifying, methods of how we teach to engage all of our learners in the real world learning. So I would be interested in what the board thinks about in adding some additional language in there to incorporate the real world learning, since we have those things like in our board goals. Because I'm just thinking about the survey and just some of the concerns I've heard over the years. You have students at various levels of learning. Some will need more of that engagement, but I think they all need realistic learning, real life learning. And so I think we do an excellent job in certain departments with that. And then like, it's Summit Tech, Herndon and all of those things. But I think that needs to be a goal throughout. Like if you're in a math class, you should understand realistically how those math concepts apply. And that might be, getting on the football field, doing some measurements, those types of things. And that's just, I was never a great math student. And you've heard me say that probably, if that example makes sense. So applying that throughout. So it's not just, oh, they go to a certain class and they think, oh, this is more of the real world learning hands-on. And then you get to this class and it's more feeling like the sit and get type thing. So I would be interested in what the board thinks about some additional language with these goals, because I think that is toward the future. They have to understand what they're learning and how it applies to their lives. And we're seeing the same thing, like in these surveys, we're seeing disconnect after, disconnect. And not saying that we're not doing a great job, but I think, as hard as everybody's working, there's still more work to do.
So may I, and so very good points. One of the things that we've talked about in executive leadership, it's beginning with the end in mind. And the question is, we're teaching our children, but teaching them to and for what? And so a part of our goal planning, we've talked about building what a Raytown graduate profile will look like. And so that is going to be a part of the work, which would streamline the way in which we are delivering content, but also diversifying the way in which we implement some of the strategies within our classrooms. We have to make sure we're diversifying the way in which we deliver content. So it's individualizing and personalizing the instruction in the classrooms, but we're beginning with the end in mind. And so we're looking at building the ideal prototype of a Raytown High School, of a Raytown graduate. And that will be the end goal for us. This is what our students should know and be able to do by the time they are graduating and ready to enter into the real world, because it's not just graduating our children, but it's pushing them out, not pushing them literally, but preparing them for the real world. And so to your point, you're spot on with that. When we go into a classroom, we're looking at whole group, small group instruction. We're looking at individualizing and personalizing instruction. We are really focusing on the delivery of content in our classrooms to make sure that it's real world and relevant. And how do we get to that place is, again, building that profile of what students should look like. In the sense of what they know and are able to do by the time they graduate. So we appreciate that input in terms of the work that we're going to continue to do.
Is that something we can put in the goal, like we verbalize as far as this document is concerned in some of these areas?
Of course,
Yeah.
Whatever you got. Well,
whatever the board's pleasure is, we're happy to. So for example, with project-based learning, which is part of the board language and the goal. As our teachers come together and collaborate in their data review teams, one of the things that we have to get back into that practice weekly of is talking about the ways in which we are engaging our students. The kind of work that we're asking for them, is it real world relevant? Are we asking them to apply what they're learning in a new context? And so completely agree with your sentiment about the need to engage our students in ways that help them see the relevance of their learning and can apply it in new context, even if it means that the math department can collaborate with the facts department or with the business department on a project that incorporates standards from both facts and math to develop, so you kind of see where I'm going here.
Like interdisciplinary.
Absolutely. So I think the secret sauce in that is allowing our teachers to collaborate with one another and developing that collaborative culture through our daily routines, which I know the last few years has been a challenge through the pandemic, and allowing our teachers to have the time that they need to just attend to surviving the day. We hope that this year we're able to get back to that regular routine of teachers coming together and collaborating and sharing ideas to build the kinds of projects and experiences for our students. That will be the work that my department will help support our principals and our teachers in this year.
Yeah, so, and this is, I promise, the last, this is the last
No, that's
one,
okay.
because the way, I probably should make a promise.
And I'm trying to break a record.
So, yeah, and just, I think this goal is fine, but looking at this last one, provide numerous high-level questions to students in formats that encourage active participation in order to improve students' depth of thinking in all classes. Just a paradigm shift needs to take place, because right now, this just seems like this is going one way with the instructors asking the questions as opposed to the students being the leaders and asking their own questions. And so, I mean, you can look at that, in two different ways. I just think a fuller, more realized goal is that this needs to be two-way with, as an instructor, students need to have the ability to be the leaders and ask these provoking questions. So I just kind of looked at that because it almost seems like it implies just like a one-way instruction where only one person has the power, as opposed to we're teaching them how to think critically. This should be us teaching them how to think, how to ask questions so they can think for themselves.
And that would be one of the skills for
I'm sorry.
no, you're fine. You're fine. That will be one of our skills that we incorporate in that profile of the Raytown graduate. And what we are expecting is that our teachers are facilitators of learning. Students will own their learning. That's where we go back to the individualized and personalized aspect of a classroom. That it is engaging, it's inviting, and it goes back to the language that we talked about earlier in the board's goals in terms of inclusivity. Because all children need to have a voice in our classroom, and teachers should be facilitators of the learning, not just the sit and get type of classroom. So we are definitely going to work in ensuring that our classrooms are engaging for all children, so that they are able to process that information and understand its applicability for real world experiences.
So the curriculum committee already reviewed these. So if you're wanting to give them time to make some actual changes to these actual goals, I suggest carry it over to next meeting.
All right, I agree with that.
And just in terms of the opportunity for that committee to come together and perhaps follow up in this board, might I ask that we extend to September? That way we allow our staff to get back and we have an opportunity to bring that committee together. The next meeting will still be, we won't quite have been the start of school yet, and those committees wouldn't have been activated for the school year. So I would ask if it's okay with the board.
Yeah, what?
We would plan to bring that back to the board perhaps in September
Yes.
for some additional conversation, and also give us a chance to maybe engage board members to get a little bit more thoughts from you in terms of how you might like to see us grow the goal to better align to where the board wants to see it.
Sounds good.
Well, and I think also, we've seen these goals for a couple of years because they, as Dr. Moore said, they were put together, or you said, before the pandemic, and now you had a stop. We have to be careful as a board because there's a lot of thought going into these, and some of the questions that we're asking have probably already been answered once you have your meetings tomorrow as how we're going to do this and what have you. So as a board, we need to really think through what, if the idea that we want to go in and change your goals, because these goals have been put together by a committee over several years of hard work, and we need to be careful.
And I think we can find a balance. Both, we can honor the work, but also look to align with where the board would like to see us move. And one thing that I could bring to the board for just information in August is the work that we will be doing as a team over the next few weeks, and engaging and talking about the goals and maybe fleshing things out a little bit more, maybe trying to get a little bit more specific. Bring that to the board for your review in August, and then we can engage some of our committees and work to perfect what those goals could look like.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
So we're gonna push that. All right, bid for 4J facility supplies using Green Bush Cooperative. Motion.
Mr. President. Move the board approve 4J facility supply an amount of $154,854.97 for the purchase of custodial supplies.
Second.
Motion made and seconded.
Just a question. I don't remember us voting on custodial supply purchases
We
before.
haven't quite some time because of the pandemic. Had a surplus of goods, obviously, because we're using paper, trash can liners, paper towels, all the things that we use. So we went through, did inventory, looked at everything. And all those things, yes.
Right. See.
Motion carries.
For the study.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I'm supposed to introduce our,
Okay, good evening, Dr. Martin Knox and board. As you may recall, the district contracted with K-12 Insight to conduct an in-depth survey. I'm sorry, I just put these words together just shortly. They put together surveys that were conducted starting in December of last year, and they were conducted through May 31st. Participants included parents, staff, students, with the purpose of gauging opinions and perceptions on the variety of topics, including academic support and leadership. Here to discuss the results is the Director of Research for K-12, Ms. Lauren Gonzalez.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Dr. Martin Knox, and thank you, board. And my apologies again for not being able to make it last board meeting. I got stuck with some travel troubles, a lot of flights being. So my name is Lauren Gonzalez. I'm a director of research at K-12 Insight. I've been working in education research, development, and teaching for just under a decade now. So I just started with K-12 Insight about a year ago, but I was very excited to work on this project with you all. I've heard many really great things about Raytown, so it's finally be here and see the community and everything. I'm going to do a little bit of turning, so I hope you guys don't mind, just so I can use the pointer and go through. You all seem very well equipped and knowledgeable about what's in this data. So I want to kind of go over the aspects of the data that really triangulate with everything that's in this presentation. So what we have in here is focus groups, which were conducted back in December. There's a thematic analysis, which goes over an open-ended response in one of the questions. So I went through and kind of got all the data from there. And both of those are qualitative analyses, and then as well as the extended survey, which goes over general school quality as well as an extra employee engagement section. So I'll go over briefly about that and where all those data points intersect. I'll leave some room at the end for any questions that you all might have. But with that, I'll get started. Okay. So with the survey design, as noted, we surveyed parents, staff members, and secondary students for feedback. We also had some additional questions for parents regarding questions about the Raytown community. But here we have the different dimensions which were asked to participants. So we go over overall school quality, academic support, student support, school leadership, family involvement, safety, and behavior. And from there, all staff members were also asked questions regarding mission and vision, district leadership, work site leadership, work environment, feedback and recognition, as well as career growth and training opportunities. Sorry, it's a mouthful, so my apologies for reading off. So specifically, the school quality survey was opened between May 6th and May 31st. Parents and staff members took the survey via a unique link. And then students also used a student ID and email login. And the surveys were also translated into Spanish. And those just go over some specifics about the data. So here's some key insights. So as we go through the data, I'll kind of point these out as they come through. But these were kind of some of the points that really stuck out to me and some of the other researchers. So as we'll go through regarding overall quality, we saw 80% of participating parents, 72% of participating campus-based staff, and 51% of secondary students rated the quality of their school as excellent or good. Among parents, this was relatively consistent with last year's rating. When asked about academic support, as noted, there was a perception gap regarding teachers successfully showing students lessons related to life outside of the school. 82% of staff agreed or strongly agreed, while only 51% of parents and 36% of students said the same. Within the focus groups, it was also noted that among students, they really wanted opportunities to engage in community and have more volunteering and shadowing opportunities as well, for more of those real world experiences. One thing that was also noted was parents and secondary students had higher percentage of favorable responses when asked if there was a teacher or counselor or other staff member that students can go to with a school problem compared to a personal problem. But one thing that I'd also like to note that was seen in those focus groups was just the immense amount of community that was seen within Raytown. There were anecdotes regarding the school really supporting families that were going through a hard time and the immense amount of empathy and compassion that the district showed. So I worked with a lot of districts around the country and I have not heard anything like that. So that was something that was really beautiful that I thought I wanted to take note of and share with all of you. And especially seeing those, I don't really think it gives tribute to that enough, but definitely something to take note of. And then within the safety and behavior dimension, there was a large difference in perceptions regarding among the stakeholders. So we saw 81% of campus-based staff strongly agreeing that bullying is not tolerated, compared to 59% of parents and 45% of students. Additionally, 85% of campus-based staff said they're responsive when students reported bullying, compared to 45% of parents and 39% of students who said the same. Additionally, 88% of campus-based staff strongly agreed that students in their school are treated fairly regardless of their background, compared to 67% of parents and 47% of students who said the same. So as we go through, I'll kind of break down where those kind of differences on background lie and how those students feel about, or how the perceptions of that. So here's some more regarding the employee engagement. So we saw a bit of a decrease regarding overall employee engagement, but we did see that 92% of staff were engaged in their work and 91% work was interesting. Percent said their work was interesting, but we did see decreases in these items, such as motivation to contribute more than what's expected of them. We saw a decrease, them feeling comfortable to recommend a good family or friend to work at Raytown, as well as optimism about Raytown. Let's see, we also saw some discrepancies regarding mission and vision, which we'll go over as we go through, as well as some components regarding feedback and recognitions. But to spare you all from me reading on here, we'll just get to those slides. So here we see participation across the 2 years where the survey was conducted. Overall, very well. Within other districts, we have seen a bit of a decrease on responses, but for here, it's still quite consistent. Mm-hmm.
I understand this. So just really quickly, if I'm understanding this correctly, and if not, just please explain it to me. It looked like last year that we had about 1,650 of these students who participated at the secondary level.
Mm-hmm.
This year, around 601. Is there some reason why it was a decrease? And I'm just curious about how that survey was administered. Was it advisory or were they on their own as parents? And I don't know if you're going to get to that later, but I didn't want to forget.
Yeah, so let me see. So here we have students. So we had the survey was delivered to 4,000 students and it was responded. There was 360 responses. Yeah, correct. So I'm not 100% sure how the survey was administered within the school. We provide kind of a login page to our point of contact, and then from there, the school really takes the lead on how and at what time the students will be able to participate. Did I answer your question? Okay. Mhm.
And so I know that's like another conversation.
Absolutely, yeah. And also making sure that everyone is widely presented in how they. Mhm. So yeah, as we go in through next year and kind of as plans to take the use or utilize this survey again, we can definitely talk more about best methods and best protocols. Absolutely. So here we have the perceptions of overall quality among parents, relatively the same. Then as we get to campus-based staff, we see more of those excellent ratings move down to good or fair or poor. And then similarly with secondary students. Sorry, I went through this quickly. If I'm moving too fast, please let me know. Here I want to take a pause and just kind of make a note of some general and national and trends that we've been seeing. So as you might notice, we did have a pretty large favorability bump in the way that participants have been responding to the surveys. And this isn't unique to Raytown, it's with all surveys and all districts where we have been administering them. Within the 2020 to 2021 school year, we've been seeing a lot more agreement and high agreement and favorability compared to this year. We really attribute that to the COVID pandemic. Last year, everyone was kind of in together. We're in this together. We're getting through this hard time. Coming out of the pandemic, coming out of that other side, I think we really all expected that for things to go back to normal, when obviously that isn't the case. We're hit with many other challenges that were very unforeseen. So when looking at this data, just definitely keep that in mind, and that nationally, we are seeing a decrease in areas of agreement and strong agreement for this year. But as we go through, I will point out some areas that caught my eye and caught my attention. So here we see, and these are the dimension scores. So these are, as noted, these are the topics that all the survey items are about. And then secondary students, also, it is very common that students are going to be rating things more favorably. Unfavorably, we know that they are very critical. So in terms of academic support, I want to student responses. As one of them caught my eye, and something that was mentioned during the focus groups, being that the school has high learning standards for all students and that teachers set high expectations for all students. One thing that some students noted is that they didn't necessarily feel that teachers had high expectations for them, and that was something that they want to be instilled at an earlier age, and something that they really want to have stronger sentiments about, and noting that this was something that they think should be introduced in pre-K and kindergarten level. Next, I'll be moving on to student supports. And as noted prior, I think this is really, this response is quite beautiful, and in the way that the community is able to support each other. So just want to bring attention for that, as well as the supports and needs. And then as well as this kind of perception gap regarding students having the support they need to prepare for the future, and that students in the school receive support to address their individual needs. We did see a perception gap among those two items, among parents and students and teachers. And so here.
And then the question is typical that we would have I know you kind of spoke over years and everything else. I'm just curious, is this typical that we see a decrease in 2021, 22 year as opposed to the 2020? I don't know, it just seemed like backward. Does that make sense what I'm asking you?
Yeah, so kind of we would expect to see things to be less favorable last year or this year. Yes, so I would say the trend that you're seeing here is what is most typical, what we've been seeing across all surveys and all districts. Yes, I think going into it, we also expected to see it the opposite. But really there was that mentality, I think, during COVID that we're all in the issues and kind of the challenges together. Let's see. Next, we have the data regarding school leadership. Here we see, just noting, it's not in this presentation just because the individual data isn't shown, or else we'd have a 200 slide presentation. But for among secondary students, the answer options are strongly agree, agree, disagree, strongly disagree, and don't know. We had very high percentages of surprisingly enough. And similar with family involvement, one thing to note here is that the school encourages families to volunteer. It's very consistent, but among focus groups, parents really noted that they love the opportunity to volunteer and they would like to have more of it. And then similarly, students are not aware of family involvement. So a lot of I don't knows there. Safety and behavior is one area where I did want to bring a little bit of attention. It's something that was mentioned in the focus groups as well as the thematic analysis. Sorry, I keep on moving back. Also, we have been seeing trends across the districts who ask questions regarding safety and behavior and discipline. We have been seeing pretty substantial decreases in agreement and strong agreement. I think just because of the social, emotional, and kind of behavioral issues that we've been seeing nationally. So once again, these stronger decreases are not something that's unique to Raytown. It's been something that's been happening nationally, but it's definitely something that we want to keep an eye out for. Let me see. So in regards to school safety, that was something that was mentioned within the focus groups in regards to issues regarding violence and bullying, discrimination, some fights, as well as kind of drug and perhaps gun safety issues that have been occurring. Those have been mentioned within the thematic analysis as well as the focus groups. So as we go through, we'll kind of see those areas of agreement are getting lower. Also areas such as discipline is enforced. We've been seeing decreases in agreement, and noting within the thematic analysis, we'll see that there's areas where parents, staff, and students all agree that they want more equitable discipline. Yep, and then within this last question, we see students in the school are treated fairly regardless of their race, culture, religion, sexual orientation, gender, or disability. From here, we have the breakdown of for all participants who noted disagree or strongly disagree, they were shown this question. So in areas where students are treated unfairly, we see the perception is that it's mostly due to race, followed by here we see culture, but it varies between parents and staff and students. And we see noting on the school safety, we see discipline being enforced. We've been seeing those lower levels of agreement. Another area I want to point out is staff members and students treat each other with respect. We've been seeing a big decline in agreement there. It's also one of the main things that students noted within that open response question. And then here we see perceptions of unfair treatment, higher with race and ethnicity, sexual orientation, gender expression. Here we see lower with staff and students treating each other with respect. And then perceptions of unfair treatment, still race, ethnicity is number one, gender, sexual orientation. So here we have the Net Promoter Score. This kind of gauges stakeholder loyalty, where participants are asked how likely are you to recommend Raytown or the district to a family or friend. Then they kind of rate that on a scale of 10 to 0. For 2021, the Net Promoter Score was 9. Now we are at -7. The scale ranges from 100 to -100.
Can you speak to that?
Mm-hmm.
That is something that you have seen or something more unique?
So we have been seeing those decreases, I think, as people are kind of coming out of COVID, and kind of just had different expectations. So it is definitely something we have been seeing national decreases when asking these sort of questions. And then this is for the parents' perceptions of the district. Here we have campus-based staff regarding school. campus-based staff regarding district, and then students, and then students in district. As noted before, the school district is the top reason which impacts families to move to Raytown. It should also be noted that in the focus groups, we asked the perceptions as to why enrollment in Raytown is declining. School district was not mentioned as one by parents or staff either. I think among students, they mentioned maybe due to media attention, but among parents and staff, the school was not listed as one, mostly attributed to an aging population or the economy. So here are the results from the thematic analysis. So in response to asking how would you rate the overall quality of Raytown, they could choose excellent, good, fair, or poor. If they chose good, fair, or poor, they are prompted to how can we get a higher rating next year. Among parents, they noted communication and having more consistent communication channels among with their teachers as well as district staff. More consistent and improved disciplinary practices was another one mentioned. Academics and having improved academics, more learning opportunities for teachers, better learning materials, more academic and social supports. And then it was also noted bullying and safety, and that the increased instances of violence, discrimination, and drug use. Among staff, they noted increased campus and facilities management, having better support systems, which note more professional development opportunities, more recognition for their accomplishments and work, as well as higher compensation. Also wanting improved communication with district leaders. And then lastly, disciplinary measures, and them noting that kind of struggling to manage student behavior. Lastly, among students, the number one thing that they noted was improvement of staff and student relationships. They wish they found more empathy and compassion from teachers. Next, we have the campus and facilities management. They wanted improved safety and discipline, noting the need for improved safety at schools and having experienced frequent instances of bullying, discrimination, and physical violence. And lastly, one thing that I thought was really interesting that I don't typically see among students was the note for innovative instruction. Very atypical to see something like that from students. Typically, they're talking about lunch. So I thought this was a really interesting note. And lastly, just wanted to quickly go through some of the employee engagement questions. Oh, not lastly, then the focus group, but this will be quick. There was a slight decrease, but as noted, we've been seeing this across all surveys. So, but noting that kind of those overall lower levels of agreement, and noting that while they are engaged with their work and they do find their work interesting, kind of the pride and kind of feeling the acts of accomplishment or being motivated is decreasing. One point that I found quite interesting was that the decrease in seeing professional growth and long-term career opportunities. During the focus groups, staff noted that one reason they came to Raytown was because of the career growth opportunities. And one thing that they really loved about it was the professional development opportunities. So I was a little surprised to see that the decrease in that and the relatively lower levels of agreement.
And this one about the future, that is not something that that would be an abnormality. It's sort of trying that back coming out of COVID. It's like not necessarily Raytown overall in this work of education.
I will be honest, I'm not sure about that last question, how that compares to other districts. I was surprised to see this as well, because it seemed during the focus groups, it did seem that teachers really had a positive experience working at Raytown. So I was a little surprised to stick, because they really, from the teachers that I spoke to, or the staff that I spoke to, they were, but it seemed like they really loved to work at Raytown and really talked about the community that they had and the opportunities for career growth and professional development that really made it special. let's see, when looking at overall agreement, we have, or overall engagement, my apologies. We have been seeing that staff are less engaged than prior. So when getting the average of all of the agreement and disagreement scores, we've been seeing that participants are less engaged than the prior year. One thing that I did also want to note was within this mission and vision and comparing across years. While staff did note that they're familiar with the vision, they knew how to fulfill it, and that it is clearly defined. It didn't, for them, there was less agreement in that the district is moving in a direction that reflects the mission, and that everyone in Raytown is doing what they can to fulfill that mission. Another point that I want to go through was feedback and recognition, as staff really mentioned that it was something that was important to them and something that they really wanted a bit more of, in noting those lower levels of agreement, in that they're recognized for their high quality work and accomplishments, that they feel appreciated for their work, and that they're recognized for their good performance at their work site. And then lastly, just the career growth opportunity. As I did note that within those focus groups, it was noted that career growth was something that was important to them and a reason why they came to Raytown. So seeing those little decreases just caught my eye a little bit. Let's see. And then lastly, just going over the focus groups. So within December, we held 8 45-minute focus groups. We had 2 student sessions, 3 staff sessions, and 3 parent sessions. We tried holding sessions for parents and guardians of homeschooled students, exited parents and guardians, and community members with no school-age children, but we had no volunteers, so we couldn't conduct those focus groups. Then down here, we have the numbers of the participants. So just a very high-level overview of our findings. Some of the strengths that were noted about Raytown are regarding their strong communication and support networks among teachers and families, the high-quality school staff, the diverse student body and community is something that was noted very frequently, I think, among all stakeholder groups, almost in every focus group. The diversity of the community that was really appreciated, and they really wanted to be celebrated more. Among parents and guardians, they noted their support, their appreciation for the support they experienced from the school when they were going through hard times, as well as the bond that supported the low-income families. That was also noted. They also loved the volunteer opportunities. And then district staff mentioned those professional development opportunities that they found to be really helpful. Within areas of improvement, they know the district student body does not match the diverse student body does not match the diversity of the district staff. That was something that they were interested in seeing more of, as well as more cultural awareness and competency among staff. They also noted the desire for the differences in background to be more celebrated within schools, improved marketing of the schools, improved safety, making note of the increased violence, bullying, and drug and alcohol abuse, use, I'm sorry. And then the reduction of administrative changes and retention among teachers. And then here are just some overall recommendations based on the findings of focus groups. So it does not reflect the survey as a whole, just more so within those focus groups. So further professional development opportunities, the continuation of virtual accessible board meetings, which I know you all are doing now, and then highlighting those successes and achievements in the school. And that's pretty much it. I don't want to keep on blabbering. I know you guys have seen. So if there's any other questions. Oh, thank you. Mhm. This is our second year, yes.
Yeah, man, that's why I was leaving it on. But anyway,
Mhm.
I'm just wondering, as far as like Natalie was mentioning with the number, I noticed that it's not a random sample, and it's just the thoughts of those that were surveyed, that completed the survey. So there's no thoughts or anything about that. We don't know if people just chose not to do it, or they didn't recognize that it needed to be done, or is there any thought process in that?
Yeah, so obviously we cannot force people to take it. It's
Right.
very much about their will if they would like to participate or not. Within some districts, I know that schools do allocate time during the day to take surveys, but obviously school time is very limited and very short, and it's hard to make sure everyone has the resources to take the survey at the same time, which is important to recognize. So, and especially this year, we have been seeing lower amounts of participation compared to other years, I think just because it is such a busy time and there is that limited capability to take those surveys. But for parents and staff, we do send smart reminders. So if we do have their email address, it's all completely anonymous and confidential, but we can send them reminders if they don't take it. But for the student surveys, it's really, we give the district the link, and then it's up to them to administer and kind of make sure students access that.
Because I can speak to that just from being a parent. I saw multiple opportunities as a parent to be able to address that, but in having a student myself, I can't recall it being the same push for the students, which is probably why you have such a small population of students. So I would like to, I guess, in going forward, to see more of a push to, you can't force people to do it, but more of a, if it wasn't done this way, a concerted time so that we can continue to have, results that will match from, year to year.
Absolutely. And I mean, moving forward, we can definitely do more work to collaborate with you all and find those best methods and best practices in making increase student participation. So whether it be through, I know we have templates for social media platforms and those types of awareness, templates for morning announcements, or for teachers to use if they want to administer or have their surveys in class. So we can definitely work with you all to get that as well.
What was the number of participants per grouping?
Was there any way to get the survey up or the PowerPoint up again? I'm sorry. I should have that number in front of me, but
It's on.
let's see if I can scroll up all the way. Here we go. So here we have those participation levels. So among parents, we had the total number of responses as 1,159, for staff 444, and for secondary students we had 364.
My question was basically, I'm sorry,
Mhm.
the number per group, not the total number, but the individual groupings. Didn't you not have individual groupings that participated? Like of the parents, a particular day, it ran from May 6th through the 31st. So of that number of days, I was looking for the grouping that came or that visited the website and participated. That's what I was looking for, not the whole number. Does that make sense?
I'm not sure if I'm following.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I'm just trying to figure out their opinions was based on how many people at a particular setting.
Like who, I think she's saying, or who did it online, who met with the group, focus group. Is
How
there certain
many?
dates?
Oh, how many met like for the focus group?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yep. So this is just for the survey. For the focus groups, the population size is much smaller. So I think among parents, we had 15 parents. I want to say about 15.
15 out of the entire district.
Yeah. So the focus groups are much smaller because they're more like conversations. Let me see. Let me get those numbers up real quick.
Do we know what that demographic looked like in terms of the 15? Was it cross-section of diverse individuals in terms of ethnicity, or in terms of, like, since these are, what is this, focus groups would be like elementary, middle, high school? Like, do we know
Mhm.
any of that?
Yep. So anyone who wanted to participate in those focus groups, it was completely volunteer. So I think we sent out an initial survey just seeing who'd want to participate and volunteer in focus groups. And then from there, we randomly selected up to 15 stakeholders for each group. So kind of up, I think, and then we wanted to schedule 3 sessions for each. So it would have been about 45 that were kind of slated to participate. And then from there, we got 15 staff members, 12 parents and guardians, and then 6 students.
Because I guess I'm sorry, I'm failing at doing this microphone. Because I guess my concern is just how, just bringing up the point about the students, just how did the 15 truly represent the district?
Mhm.
Not that they don't represent the district, but just across the board.
Mhm.
And I know we can't do like 50 or 100 or anything like that, but just, I know 15 just seems really slim.
No, absolutely. And I think for at least definitely the goal was to have that 45. But once again, we can't force people to come, unfortunately. But moving forward, in continuing the focus groups, kind of having that more, maybe perhaps more community buy-in to ensure stronger participation and more follow-up.
Well, that's probably why you put just focus group overview and not statistics that were based on the surveys.
Exactly.
So first little question, I think your program is, or presentation is different than the one we have. So can we get the updated one put on?
Some of that information, right? We don't have that.
Yeah.
We don't have
We
the
don't have a
focus
few
group
of the
information in
slides.
our.
Okay.
Just
I can make sure you guys get the extended focus group report. I'll make
updated one.
sure.
And I just want to commend you for this as well. With
Yeah.
all the questions, I also want
No.
to recognize, thank you
No, absolutely. I'm happy
for the
to
hard work.
So,
Mhm.
There's a lot of information in here. We went through it quickly. Some of the things probably may be a little bit predictable, especially from parents and students. The thing that jumps out at me first is the staff responses. It's much more negative than I thought. And the number of detractors is higher than I thought it would be. So it seems like that's a place probably of immediate focus and to do some more work, some more survey work even right there. What is your recommendation beyond this, moving forward for us to use this information?
Absolutely. I think kind of the continuation of this kind of these types of surveys is really important, and just that continuing assessment of kind of employee engagement as well as school quality. Moreover, I think we could also like perhaps tailoring those focus groups. I think for the first year is quite broad and definitely more specified to the survey results from last year. But with this new data, I think there's a lot of really interesting points to hone in on. So I think really perhaps doing for like kind of further focus groups with staff to really see where their pain points are and why engagement is missing.
I also took note in terms of some of the staff responses that they seemed a little bit low in terms of the staff feeling listened to with district leaders. That was just something that I noted, and not to say that people aren't listening to each other, but just the gaps in how people feel, because we could predict that with students and maybe and perhaps with some of our parents, but I also was a little bit concerned with that. And I don't know, just moving forward, I don't know if that goes down to communication, and I don't know, just people feeling more valued. And I don't know would you recommend more of those focus groups, as you're saying, tailoring those, but would you recommend having more of these like throughout the year?
I would, and I have found them to be quite successful. There's a couple districts that we worked with that had that were facing very different issues, but they found that kind of having those outlets to really to voice their opinions and voice what they're going through and kind of voice those grievances to be very important. It's kind of a place where they know they'll be heard, and kind of where we'll be able to kind of collect that data and give it to you in a way where it's organized. Mhm.
I think it's very clever of you to recommend us doing more business. with you. But the districts that you work with, what do you see them doing with the information that you provide them?
Mhm. It definitely depends on the school, you know, so we have been seeing schools kind of use workshops and take it into their like kind of end of year action plans to move on to the following year. And kind of using it to kind of update those goals and update their mission and kind of figure out the next steps and how kind of improve those pain points and kind of areas improvement that they have.
Thank you.
Just in my opinion, I look at, but I think we should look at the improvement of this year. I think it's kind of difficult to judge everything off of last year, especially when I guess the net recommending our district and things like that. I would expect it to be down from the previous. That's why I was asking about it's been 2 years, because we definitely need to see more of a trend. I mean, it's kind of, I would say, where we are, kind of, in my mind, it was the expectation, but I think wherever those numbers fall this year, we can use that just to try to improve it, see what we can do for it. And that's, I think, Rick saying, how can we use this information to improve on where we are? I don't know that necessarily the decrease from last year or increase from last year is a way to judge where we are. However, we know where we are by the survey.
Mm-hmm.
And also trying to get more people engaged in doing the survey. And because a lot of times I think people just surveys, you just get asked questions, but nothing changes. And so letting people know that there's going to be some changes, I think, important for us to do.
Agree with that. I agree with your statement, Alonzo, because I think we need at least 2 more years under our belt to really get an in-depth trend of what is needed, what we can do to make those changes. I mean, there's a lot of complexities that are involved in the district at this given time because of the fact that we had 2 years of pandemic, and the foundation just needs we need more time for the foundation to solidify.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I think that's it.
I would say when we do more focus groups, we need to figure out a way, since we didn't have any community members involved, we need to figure out a way to get some of those.
Yeah, agree.
Who do you mean? Community members, not parents?
Yeah, non-parents, and what was the other?
Recently exited parents, parents with homeschool children, and then community members with their children.
I'm a recently exited. Is that REP George? How did communicate? I didn't see. How did you communicate with reps?
So, in terms of, so that was coordinated by the district. We don't have access to those members. So we really rely on your support to kind of get those addresses.
Do you guys ever get engaged with how to contact rather than trying to get our staff to do that? Is that something that just wasn't part of the contract that you had, or is that something you just don't do?
I'll have to get back to you on that. I'm not sure. I haven't had experiences where out to community members or that are outside of the school, but I can definitely ask.
I'm speaking of in general, even just staff and students. I mean, like the student number being really low. I know you said you give recommendations on how to do that, but is that something that your company can engage in, be willing to? Is that something, the service that you provide?
Yes, so it really depends on how the survey is administered. So we can send those smart reminders to students so they get those constant reminders as I'm sure you have received.
firewalls and with the kind of barriers that student emails have. Sometimes getting those emails to the students is challenging, which is why there's possibility to allocate school time for students to complete the survey. Recommend that. But I think if emails would be a better way to go about it. Does that answer your question? I'm sorry.
Not exactly.
Okay.
I'm saying like, instead of a staff being responsible for conducting the survey and making sure that we increase our participant number, that you guys actually execute that, not necessarily through emails, but whatever it takes to get those students that you offer that service. Even if it is during school time, or if it's just being more engaged with us as far as getting our participant levels up.
I'm sure we can. Let me get back to my team and kind of see if there's anything that we've done in the past. But if not, we can certainly create a plan.
Thank you. All right. Draft contract with Newkirk, Novak.
So good evening. Excuse me. One, apologize about the lights. I already emailed my electrician. He'll morning to figure out why we're strobing.
There's nothing wrong with the lights.
Yeah, it's not great.
Nothing wrong with the lights.
So I asked to go ahead and put this on. It's in draft form. I'm not asking for a vote tonight, just to go through and answer questions. I'm going to be out of the country in August for that board meeting. I've given Terry and Dr. Martin Knox some very high level views of what the plan is. We want to answer specific questions and not put that on them to answer with not as much knowledge as my team and I have. Sandy Cochran's here with me to help as well as Lynn Newkirk and Kim Randolph of Newkirk and Novak that will go through and answer any questions that I may not be able to answer. I want to bring your attention in the contract to, it's a standard AIA contract that you've seen many times. The difference is this time it's a CMAR instead of a general contractor standpoint that you've been used to. Right now, the contract's currently with legal. We've had a little bit of a change there. Ryan Fry, who is our construction and bond attorney through Gwen Mundorf, he's a part of Blue Springs now. It's in-house counsel. So Anthony and Shelley have been taking over with us, and we have another meeting scheduled to make sure everybody's up to speed on everything. But currently, this contract's being reviewed by their team right now. Some of the things to point out. On page 11, it talks about fees, which is obviously one of the most important parts of this. The fee that we've landed on is 2% of the guaranteed maximum price. We don't know that guaranteed maximum price until we move forward with the planning and going through with Len and his team to establish the price. The price should be somewhere between $32 and $35 million for the entire contract. As we move forward with that, we'll update, through that process. The other key thing in there is this is all dependent upon passing a bond in April. If for some reason that bond would not pass, this fee that we would owe Newkirk and Novak is $25,000 for the work that they put in getting that GMP and then going forward and getting all the things that they do to help us and get those pricing done. Anything you want to add? Are there any questions that you guys have?
John, if you could please go over page 11, the construction manager's fee. I just
Sure.
want to make sure I understand because there are three.
Yep, I can talk to those.
Thank you.
Specifically. If you look at 6.1.2, that talks about 2% of the GMP. That is the guaranteed maximum price.
Josh,
What?
which document are you in?
The 133. Thank you. Page 11, 6.1.2.
The second one.
Let me know when you find it.
Why was it page 11 on that?
That's not it. Maybe it's the third one. I thought it was the second one. I'm sorry.
It's A1A document A133. I'm in that one. Go ahead.
Okay. 6.1.2 talks about the 2% that you're seeing is what I talked about, and that's Newkirk and Novak's fee based off the guaranteed maximum price. The 6.13 where it says 3.5%, that's the fee on change orders. That's anything that we would change either on because we changed it or we hit conditions that we couldn't foresee, then that's their fee there. The 6.14 talks about change order limits. It goes through and says what the contractor can charge on top of their cost to where that's guaranteed as well. That way when we have change orders come through, the way Sandy and I vet those before we approve or don't approve those is go through and they have to show us what their material costs, what their profit, what their overhead is on that. And that 6.14 speaks directly to that.
Did you say that this contract will be ready next month?
Next month, yes. I just want to go through this since I'm not going to be here to answer questions. I want to be here
I
to
just
answer all your questions.
Yeah.
I will put it on there for a motion to vote, and it'll just say, as written. If any of these numbers are not going to change, the things that we will talk about is just basically anything that Anthony or anyone else on our legal team come to us with. Any other
So
questions?
that the GMP will be known then next month?
No.
Right.
We won't know that until we
Yeah.
engage and get through the whole process. We've got plans and we're shovel ready on South High, but the auxiliary gym at Raytown High, we still need to start through that process.
Newkirk and Novak did a great job in talking about the pre-construction phase during their presentation. I appreciate that. I do want to look at 7.2.6. The cost for services incurred during the pre-construction phase. What type of costs are those?
So that's estimating. So during the pre-construction phase, they go through estimating and costs with us during the design. So with South High, we've already designed that project, but that was wrapped up 2 years ago. So we'll take that one off the shelf, go through it again, verify the cost estimates that we had at the end of 2020. Newkirk and Novak will go through those, see if there's any adjustments we need to make, if there's cost savings that can be worked into the design and revised prior to putting out to bid. And then during the design process in Raytown High School, what we'll do is work with them throughout the process and do cost estimates along the way. So that's that pre-con services that we're relying on them for. That helps get us very close to our estimates before going out to bid.
And those costs, and I wish I knew a better way to put this.
We'll figure it out. Just ask.
Thank you so much. So those costs for pre-construction services are part of this contract. I see that. But are they in addition to anything? Or they're just part of what we know as the fees, like the fees in 6.1?
Do you want to talk to that as far as?
Yeah, it would be in addition to the 2% base fee that's included in that, I think it's 6.1. So there's really two major fees to be concerned with: pre-construction fee and the 2% fee that we're talking about. $25,000 is kind of a lump sum number to get us between now and the day we start the work. Okay, and then the 2% is to execute the work.
So when we talk about pre-construction, and Sandy, you did explain that we already have information or the design. So when we're talking about pre-construction, I'm not asking for a number, but I don't know what those types of costs look like as a total or overall. Can you help me with that, a range or anything, or is that the 25,000?
That's the 25,000.
Thank you.
And just so you have some comfort, a number was quoted at from all the different teams that you interviewed.
Mhm.
So you would have to have kind of comparisons there too, kind of make sure that it's market.
Mhm.
Specifically ask for that number because if for some reason the bond does not pass, you understand what your cost would be to the construction team for their time. That's what you're paying for.
Thank you.
The bond, is it just for these projects or there's other projects included in that?
So we'll get with Joe, Joe Kinder that sells our bonds and markets our bonds for us, get updated, what our bonding capacity is based off revenue sources and updated where we're at. But more than likely, this will tie up the of those funds.
Okay, and the amount, when will we get to the GMP?
We need to finish designing Raytown High School's project. And we need to go back through and verify cost estimates on South High. And then we will get to GMP.
So are you already designing Raytown?
You haven't released us to do that yet.
I just want to make sure.
That's what now when we will start that is when we go through and I send this contract through to be voted on in August. That is what's going to be asked to where we move forward with that.
In order to meet your construction budget or budget deadlines that we've talked about before on that overall timeline, we will want to start in August. So we can get that design wrapped, completed and documented out to bid on.
I guess where I'm asking about the GMP and when, because when we go get the bond, obviously we're gonna need the cost.
So correct. We've run that through a couple different sources to go through with our systems to go through. We'll be well within what our bonding capacity is and what we project the cost to be. We will be okay on that piece of it. We just don't have that dialed in number without the drawings in place. That's why I said, between 32 and 35. Right now, our bonding capacity at the last we were at was right around 35 million.
Are you planning to put in it like the same kind of committee to design Raytown with the stakeholders?
So we'll work with Dr. Martin Knox on that and how she wants all of that to look. But we still have House and Miller has their general approach that we've talked to Mr. Gibson about and given Dr. Martin Cox kind of a heads up on what we've done in the past. As you said before, when you have a new person in, there may be some different influence that she would want to have on that. But overall, the general package and how to get that out to our voters will be, you guys will be seeing a finance committee meeting. We'll be bringing a letter from House and Miller just to formally remind everybody of the time frame that we are at with South High. We did a temporary fix on that. And that temporary fix will be, in their opinion, expired in December of 2024. And so that's the urgency of what we're looking at. And that's why we've had ongoing discussions since 2020 on what to do with that. That's, if you recall, we went in and rebuilt the back wall, thought that was the fix. We fixed that. Then we got moving along the west wall. That's when we decided to go through and do a temporary fix because of bonding capacity. And then once we had more bonding capacity, go through and address it correctly.
But as far as the design process, you'll bring in the users.
Yes.
And use that.
So South High, we've already done all.
Yeah,
that.
and talking about South High, just not to bog that down or anything. When you dust it off, will you run that because they got a new theater director out there? So let them at least have a glance at it and see if there's some things that they think of that are new and different. I mean, because things have already changed in 2 years. So
they have. We'll have to be careful with that. We'll definitely get their input on that.
We don't want to go through the
With
whole
all the
team
documents
again, but
already
let's
all
just
drawn. We'll have to be careful with how much change we allow. Any other questions?
I don't have a question. I have a statement.
Sure.
I don't know if I'm the only individual at this meeting that was not able to follow you.
Okay.
But I would appreciate it if you're gonna give us something. Also showed up there, so at least if we don't know exactly where you're speaking for myself.
Sure.
Others may have found it. I could look up there and kind of get an idea of where you're at. I appreciate it because all I saw was small print.
Okay.
And that's straining my eyes, and I'm too young to be straining my eyes.
I appreciate that. We'll make sure we do that. Any other questions? If for some reason you guys have a question after this, shoot me an email, let me know. We'll get back with you that way. Terry and Dr. Martin Knox aren't in a position of trying to answer questions about a project that we've had going for a couple of years, and they have a couple weeks to get up to speed on it. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, shoot. I closed my, oh my goodness.
There was a donation of a 1976 Suzuki motorcycle to Herndon Career Center from Emilian Michalski. So we want to thank that person for that donation to Herndon.
Thank you very much. Next we have, that's it. Adjournment.
I move the board adjourn the regular board meeting at 8:33.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor? Aye, ayes have it.